And we're back. We're back. Welcome to Hose Jockeys Unite. This is the Day Room Show, the show where we sit here. It's the roundtable format, and we just talk. Talk about whatever we decide to talk about that day. Nothing's scripted and nothing's rehearsed. Good evening, Jay. How are you tonight?
I'm doing pretty good for an old fart. How about yourself, Chris?
I'm not too bad. Not too bad.
Okay, folks, breaking news. And I forgot to mention this to you, Chris, because we were setting up for the show. Overnight in California, there was a fire in a storage yard that was underneath one of the bridges on the 10 freeway. The 10 freeway is one of the major thoroughfares through LA. They shut boat traffic down both directions because of this fire.
Okay.
The call come in, according to the news, it came in about midnight last night, and today at 5:30 they were still there putting out hotspots.
Oh wow.
And
There's
and you
a
could,
good 8 hour worker, huh?
oh yeah, this was one of those where you should have grabbed that last donut off the kitchen table as you're going out to the apparatus bay. Um, they the video that I seen of it, they had to deal with you know tires popping on the tractor trailers, and then here come the fuel tanks popping off.
Oh, yay.
Yes, so it made it very interesting. Now the funny thing of it is, folks, if you get a call where you're going to have to shut down traffic, make sure one of the first things you call for when you call in for additional resources is law enforcement.
Right.
Because these folks out there in California, there's fire coming up on both sides of this bridge, and right up through the middle where the I guess the northbound southbound lane is, and right up through the middle of that it's divided. There's fire coming up through there, and these fools are still driving across the bridge, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Oh look, there's a fire. Meep meep. Let's go.
They don't care.
No.
It's everywhere. It's not just California. It's everywhere.
And then we got this fool in a Tesla that tried to run over LDH. That didn't work out too good for him. So yeah, it's folks, call for when you call for additional resources, call for law enforcement, especially if you're going to shut down traffic, or you're going to get fools like this.
Well, that kind of just it's everywhere. I mean, people run through an accident scene, balls to the wall, don't even slow down.
Mm-hmm.
There's 10 million sirens. I mean, there's 10 million flashlights up ahead. Let's drive. Oh, look, pretty. Huh? Let's keep going.
Yeah, it's like, oh look, there's a candy cane on top of that fire truck. Meep meep. Hi, how you doing? So
Annoying.
tell me about it. Now. My son, when he first got on the fire department, he was talking about how he wanted to light his vehicle up and strobe this and LED that and blah 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 blah. And I told him, I said, son, they won't get out of the way for a 5-ton fire truck. What the hell makes you think they're gonna get out of the way of your 3/4 ton pickup truck?
That and the fact that, and I've been there. I can see a driver's point of view. Sometimes there's too much light on scene and drivers can't see.
Yeah,
I mean, I've been there. I've been on accident scenes where I've had people tell me we can't see you because there's too much light.
yeah.
And the
Especially
Tim's
especially if
oh,
you're, go ahead.
I don't know, the Tim's training that I did says get on scene, get established, and shed any unnecessary warning lights.
Yeah, and especially with these LEDs, man, they'll blind the crap out of you.
Oh yeah,
And they'll if they're flashing fast enough, they'll send people who have epilepsy, blah, blah. They'll send them into a seizure.
some epilepsies,
Yeah, some epilepsies. That and 50 cents get you a cup of coffee.
right?
So,
So if you see a light, move to the right. I mean, come on,
big,
it's common
really,
sense, people, and
really.
it's
And,
the law.
well, I noticed something. We went to the Veterans Day parade earlier today,
Okay,
which any veterans that are listening, thank you from the
yes,
bottom of my heart. Thank you. Um, and I noticed that some of the fire apparatus that was in there, that was in the parade, not only the new stuff, but some of the older stuff that's been in service 5 or 6 years, have swapped from the red LEDs on the back to either amber or blue.
Yeah. Um, the fire department I used to work for, the new engine they got had blue lights on the rear.
Mhm.
It's a
Now,
combination of red and blue, but and I've seen
yeah,
some police cars around here that had red and blue now too, which is
yeah,
really
I've seen.
confusing.
Yeah, they have those here in Burlington too. Um, Now I noticed Graham Fire Department. They just bought a brand spanking new Pierce aerial tower, which hopefully will be bringing you some video on that in a new segment called "The Latest and Greatest."
Yeah,
But
either that we'll do that, or we'll just post it as content on the YouTube page.
yeah, we can do that too, or we can do both, whatever the mood strikes.
We'll do both.
Um, yeah, but they've got all blue on the back end of their truck, with the exception of course, the turn signals and the brake lights. But any kind of warning light was blue, and yeah, I'm assuming that it's to help visibility. But again, with those LEDs, it don't matter if they're pink and purple. They're at night they're gonna blind the crap out of you. Especially if you're an old man like me and have to wear bifocals, and that light hits that little line where the bifocals at.
Oh yeah,
So
that's why I wound up getting transitions because I couldn't drive with the line. I had to pay the extra money and get the transitions.
man, you just can't hide all that money you make.
Oh please, that's what insurance is for. Speaking of making all that money, do have some news, and
Yes, you do.
you called it. You know me too well, but as of Monday, I will be working full time fire again, and not in EMS, other than my EMS duties for fire. So,
Yeah, the big congratulations to you on that. And I know I've told you, but I'm gonna say right here on the podcast in front of everybody, I'm very proud of you.
oh, thank
You
you.
you you've come. Oh, don't get mushy on me. You've come a long way in a short time,
Oh yeah,
and I am very very proud of you. Next thing you know, you'll be getting your teaching credentials and teaching this stuff. Hint
that's
hint.
my plan. That, and I think I'm gonna go and finish up my degree, do fire science, and try to be an inspector slash investigator as well.
That would be cool. That would be
But
very cool. And
as my,
who put all these bright ideas into your head anyway?
I don't know, some Santa Claus looking fool.
Ho ho ho, baby.
So, like you said, came a long way in a short time, and it really is true. It's been 7 years, but my training officer at Clover pushed me to get my training out, and I got all the way up to firefighter two within a year. See, Clover, I'm sporting Clover today. Hi, Clover,
Mm-mm,
miss you guys. um,
mm-mm.
and he's like, "You've done really well. Gotten pretty much all your training out within the first year, and even through personal loss, I still stuck to it and you know got it all knocked out within the first year." I was in the
Yeah,
middle of my intro fire class, and that's when my dad died, and I had to miss 2 or 3 days of class. But
yeah,
that that class was kind of what held me together um, when he died. So
yeah.
I went and took care of him, and came back and finished class, and from there on, it was just you know smooth sailing, right?
Yeah.
Right as they say.
I know he's looking down on you and smiling.
Oh yeah, he was a
But
cop, so I mean, among
yeah,
other things, but he was a police officer for a long time, and
gotcha.
so he's been in our shoes.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned how the class kind of helped you keep things together. I remember when my mom passed away, I was right in the middle of finishing up my degree, and when we had the visitation at the funeral home, it was on a class night,
Right.
and I'm sitting up there by the casket, and my brother was standing beside of me, and I don't can't remember right off the top of my head where my boys and Kathy and my dad were, but I look up, and here comes the whole class that I'm in the front door of the funeral home. Every one
Nice.
of them, and they all come over, hug my neck, and uh, really made me feel good.
Well, I mean,
Um,
it is a brotherhood.
yep.
So,
And uh, Captain Cato, if you're watching, I love you, brother. I ain't seen you in a while, so hope you're still out there teaching shagging. That,
teaching
that, that
shag.
man, yeah, that man could shag like you wouldn't believe.
Oh, so tell me about the new stuff going on at the Outer Banks. You were telling me earlier. Talk about it on the show.
Oh,
I
oh,
don't. Unfortunately, I don't have any video to show, but I just found out about this about 20 minutes before airtime. So go
well,
ahead.
I got a better one for you. I found out about it about 15 minutes before I called you and told you about it. Um, there's a YouTube podcast called Heroes Next Door, and they spotlight different firehouses and EMS facilities and things like that. And see, living on the coast presents a very unique set of circumstances. Uh, on the Outer Banks, you're looking at probably 100 miles from start to finish of the Outer Banks, but at its widest point is 2 miles wide, and there's only one hospital, which is Outer Banks Hospital, and the only closest trauma center from there is Norfolk Centera in Norfolk, Virginia.
So let me get this straight. You're telling me that Norfolk is actually closer than UNC by air?
Yep.
Okay.
Now they have flown patients to UNC, but in order for them to do that, it's got to be like a burn patient or something like that.
Oh, so very specialized. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe
Uh,
I'm sure they flown pediatrics there.
oh, absolutely. In fact, my oldest son, when he was 3 weeks old, they flew him. He got real bad off sick,
Oh,
and
okay.
there at the local Band Aid station, they couldn't figure out what was wrong with him, so they flew him to King's Daughters, which is right there at Norfolk Centera.
Mm,
So at so yeah, they fly pediatric, they fly pregnant women, you name it, they'll take it.
right.
Um, Now on this podcast, Heroes Next Door, they spotlight uh, one of the fire departments on the Outer Banks, which is Corolla Fire Department, and their district is very unique in a way that 99 and 9/10% of the homes there are multi-million-dollar homes.
Just
We're
like
talking,
everything else on the OBX.
yeah, but this is wall to wall and treetop tall with them. I mean,
Yeah.
they don't even have a gift store. And to show you how, I don't want to say ritzy titsy, but how upper class this is. Their closest grocery store is a Food Line 10 miles outside of district. So they have it's multi-story, and it's kind of funny the way they're built.
Right.
The living room is on the bottom floor, and then you have the bedrooms on the second floor, and the kitchen is on the top floor. Now, why do you wonder why the kitchen is on the top floor? Where do most of your fires start?
In the kitchen.
In the kitchen. So that way, if you do get a fire in the kitchen, you're not burning the whole entire house down.
No, but it
And
makes suppression a whole lot harder.
well, they've got um, a very good system for. Uh, it's like, see if I can remember this. It's been a minute. They've got 2.5 on the back. They don't use they've got pre-connects, but they got 2.5 on the back that they've gated off into 2 inch and 3/4 um, pre-connects.
Yeah,
They'll pull that instead of the cross lay, and they'll send one pre-connect up the side stairs and one up the front, and they'll meet in the middle and push the fire literally right back to stove, cabinets, whatever, wherever it started.
yeah.
And they train on uh, rapid deployment, and they got, you're gonna laugh, they got stairmasters in their stations, so they can build the strength up in their legs so they can get up and down the steps without falling out with cardiac arrest.
Well, a lot of fire departments have those in their stations. They use them for their agility test.
True, true.
Um, but you'd think with all that money, and this is going to sound stupid, but you'd think with all that money that the homeowner would just build a small standpipe system in to
Well, a lot of the
or
houses,
or a Class C, Class K extinguishing system.
well, a lot of the houses there now, since the new fire marshal has taken over down there, he's requiring uh, sprinklers.
Right,
He got it passed through the county higher ups that the houses, any new construction has to be sprinkled. But then we fall back to the grandfather clause that if a house was built last year, they ain't got to come up to code unless they remodel.
right.
So some of them are sprinkled, some of them are not, which is a shame. But part of this district, if you don't have 4-wheel drive access, you're not getting to it.
No,
And
because of the sand.
exactly, and this department has, I believe they have 3 4-wheel drive engine companies. And now, folks, I'm 6'7". The first step to get into the cab of this one truck that I remember distinctly come up to just below my breastbone. So you either need a step ladder or be really tall to get in the cab of this truck. But you would think with all that weight, with the water on the tail end, that it would sink it in the sand.
No,
No, the tires that they got on those trucks, it just literally floats across the sand. And I
well,
mean, yeah, they keep the tires aired down some,
right.
but it just literally floats.
Yeah.
And they spotlight that department on this podcast.
Hmm.
They spotlight the EMS district throughout Dare County. And the newest video that they've had up, which is what I told Chris about before the show,
Yeah.
they recently, in the past couple of years, have received a new uh, helicopter for uh, Arivac,
Right.
and they spot
Medevac.
Medevac, and they spotlight that. And during this video, they take the guy who's doing the interviewing, they take him up in the helicopter, and they fly him all around Dare County, and you can see you know Dare County, which from the air is beautiful, but you can also see the special challenges that not only EMS but fire departments have.
Right.
So if you get a chance, it's again, it's Heroes Next Door, and the video I'm talking about is uh, it'll have a picture of the helicopter on the thumbnail, and it'll say Airbus on it.
Yeah. Like I was looking for it earlier, and I had a hard time finding it. So I don't know if
Uh,
there's more than one Heroes Next Door YouTube channel or not. So But
So,
this
but
one
if
I
you,
had a blue and white logo with like a shield on it.
yeah, I'll look for it after the show, and I'll send you the link, and maybe you can put it on our webpage.
Yeah, I will.
So, because it's very, if you've never been to the Outer Banks, it's very interesting to see. So, but it was a very good video, and again, you can see the special challenges that living on the coast of North Carolina presents itself with. So, and that and the houses that are down there is mega close together.
Right.
So when you get a fire in one and you got a good northeast wind, you might as well figure writing that one off and making a stand at the second one. So,
Well,
uh,
that's standard.
yeah. But anyhow, Chris, what else you got this evening?
Um, I'm actually doing something in the background right now, so if you don't mind keeping it going just for a minute.
Okay, well I can go ahead and start my stuff here if you want.
All right.
Um, folks, I'm getting old, and we went all the way through October, done what three
Two or three
shows,
shows.
two or
Yeah.
three shows in October, and never mentioned the fact that it was Fire Prevention Month. Now, a lot of people don't know exactly how Fire Prevention Week started or anything like that. So I figured, we'll make up for it tonight and tell you what happened that got it started. In 1871, October 8th through the 10th, the Great Chicago Fire occurred. It was a conflagration, and like I said, it burnt from October the 8th through the 10th in 1871.
It was a something, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was a cluster bleep. The fire killed approximately 300 people, destroyed roughly 3.3 square miles of city, including over 17,000 structures. That's right, 17,000 structures.
That's 0, 0. That's three
Yeah,
zeros.
yeah, that's 17 comma 3 zeros. And it left more than 100,000 homeless. Now, the fire began in a neighborhood southwest of the city center. A long period of hot, dry, windy conditions. Remember that, folks. Hot, dry, windy conditions. And the wooden construction prevalent in the city led to the conflagration. The fire lit the south branch of the Chicago River and destroyed pretty much of the central Chicago. And then it jumped the main stem of the river and consumed uh, the north side of the city.
Sure.
Now, help flowed into the city from all over after the fire. The city government improved building codes to stop the rapid spread of the future fires, and it rebuilt rapidly to those higher standards. A donation from the United Kingdom. You remember Marlon Perkins' United Kingdom animal show, right? Don't you?
Yeah, Wild Kingdom.
Yeah. Uh, Now, United Kingdom spurred the establishment of the Chicago Public Library, which also burnt during the fire. Now, the origin of the fire, the cottage of Catherine and Patrick O'Leary at 137 West DeKoven Street. The neighborhood was congested with wooden buildings and a variety of industry, a condition which helped to spread the fire of as rapidly as it did. A strong wind blowing towards the northeast spared the O'Leary's cottage and the buildings on her property. Now, the fire is claimed to have started about 8:30 on October the 8th, in or around a small barn belonging to the O'Leary family that bordered an alley behind their home on West Decoven Street.
Right.
The shed next to the barn was the first building to be consumed by the fire, and the city officials never determined the actual cause of the blaze. But the rapid spread of the fire due to a long drought in that year's summer, strong winds from the southwest, and the rapid destruction of the water pumping system explain the extensive damage of the mainly wooden city structures. Now, there has been much speculation over the years on a single start to the fire. The most popular tale blames Mrs. O'Leary's cow, who allegedly knocked over a lantern. Others state that there was a group of men that were gambling inside the barn and knocked over a lantern. And some even say it was a meteor storm.
Hmm. Act of
Yeah.
God, huh?
Mm-hmm. But either way, the speculation suggests that the blaze was um, others still speculated that there was fires from other fires in the Midwest embers that set the fire. Now, the fire spread was aided by the city's use of wood as the predominant building material in a style called balloon frame. If you're new and you're not familiar with balloon frame construction, balloon frame is basically a hollow wall, no fire stops from floor to the ceiling. It's all open. And if a fire starts in the basement of a building with balloon frame construction, it can travel up through the walls and into the attic and never break through the wall. Now, more than 2/3 of the structures in Chicago at the time were entirely of wood,
Okay.
with most of the houses and buildings being topped with highly combustible tar or shingled roofs. All of the city's sidewalks and many roads were also made of wood. Compounding this problem, Chicago receiving only 1 inch of rain from July the 4th to October the 9th, causing severe drought conditions before the fire, while strong southwest winds helped to carry flaming embers towards the heart of the city. Now, in 1871, the Chicago Fire Department only had 185 firefighters with just 17 horse-drawn engines, and this was to protect the entire city. The day previous to the Chicago fire, they had fought a fire in a lumber yard, and it said fire for their engines uh, broke down, and some of their firefighters were hurt. And that, coupled with the firefighters that wasn't hurt being wore out for that, and they're trying to restock their engines, they were all tired when they got there.
All right, for sure.
So now the initial response by the fire department was a timely response, but due to an error by the watchman, whose name was Mathis Schaefer, the firefighters were initially sent to the wrong place, allowing the fire to grow unchecked. Now, back in those days, there was no actual fire alarm system. There was no pull boxes. There was no 911. Uh,
Well,
it's gonna sound.
they
Go
were
ahead.
lucky to have a fire hose back then. They were lucky it wasn't just a bucket brigade.
Exactly.
That was just the tail end of the bucket brigade when that came out of play.
Hmm. Now, you're gonna the kind of going on to that. The fire hydrants that how that we call them fire plugs, right?
Right.
You know how they got that name?
Yep. They were wooden. They used to have wooden water mains, and they would drill a hole in it, pump water out, and then they plug it up with a cork or something like that, or clay, um,
Exa-
and
exactly.
when they were done using it. So
Mhm.
that's how they got their water back then.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's your gee whiz nice to know tip for the day. Uh, Now, the way they would do this, dispatch the fire department, is they would have what they call bell towers, and there would be a watchman at night, and would be in this watchtower all night long. And if this watchman seen the glow from a fire, smoke or whatnot, he would ring this huge bell there in the bell tower.
Like a church bell.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And the firefighters would report to the station, get the trucks, get to where the fire was from him, and go. So
Which
there.
was which was the predecessor to the now extinct um, practice of using sirens on the station sirens,
Mm-hmm.
which that's now the way of the dinosaur as well.
Quit saying it's the way of the dinosaur. They still use them when I first joined.
Well, things
Yeah.
change.
Yeah. Hey, this ain't just pretty, you know. But anyway, the alarm sent from the area of the fire failed to register at the courthouse, where the fire watchmen were. While the firefighters were tired from, like I said, having fought numerous small fires and one large fire in the weeks before,
Okay.
these factors combined to turn a small barn fire into a conflagration. Now, this when the fire spread of this thing was wild. Uh, when firefighters finally arrived at DeKoven Street, the fire had grown and spread to neighboring buildings and was progressing towards the central business district. Firefighters had hoped that the south branch of the Chicago River and an area that had previously thoroughly burned would act as a natural fire break. All along the river, however, were lumber yards, warehouses, coal yards, and barges, and numerous bridges across the river. And guess what the bridges were made out of?
Wood.
Wood. As the fire grew, the southwest wind intensified and became superheated, causing structures to catch fire from the heat and from burning debris blown by the winds. Around midnight, flaming debris blew across the river and landed on the roof of the south side gasworks. Now, with the fire across the river and moving rapidly toward the heart of the city, naturally panic set in.
Right.
About this time, Mayor Roswell B. Mason sent messages to nearby towns asking for help. When the courthouse caught fire, he ordered the building to be evacuated and the prisoners jailed in the basement below to be released. Now, at 2:30 a.m. on the 9th, the cupola of the courthouse collapsed, sending the great bell crashing down. And some witnesses reported that they could hear the sound of the cupola collapsing and the bell crashing from a mile away.
That's a big bell.
Yeah, big bell, big cupola too. Now, as more buildings succumbed to the fire, the major contributing factor to the fire spread was a meteorological phenomenon known as a fire whirl, or some people call it a fire tornado. Uh, as overheated air rises, it comes in contact with the cooler air and begins to spin, creating, like I said, the tornado effect. Or some people call it a firestorm also. Now, these fire whirls were likely what drove flaming debris so high and so far. Such debris was blown across the main branch of the Chicago River to a railroad car carrying, guess what?
What?
Kerosene.
Oh, kerosene.
Yeah. It just gets worse. Murphy's Law was there even in 1871. Now, the fire had jumped the river a second time and was now heading across the city's north side. Now, despite the fire spreading and growing rapidly, the city's firefighters continued to battle the blaze. A short time after the fire jumped the river, a burning piece of timber lodged on the roof of the city's waterworks. Within minutes, the interior of the building was engulfed in flames and the building was destroyed, and with it, the city's water mains went dry. And the city was literally helpless. The fire burned unchecked from building to building and block to block. Now, finally, late on in the evening of October the 9th, it had started to rain, but the fire had already started to burn itself out. Now, the fire had spread to the sparsely populated areas of the north side, having thoroughly consumed and the more densely populated areas.
Okay.
Now, after the fire, once it had finally, ended, the smoldering remains were still too hot for anyone to survey the damage for many days. Eventually, the city determined that the fire destroyed an area about 4 miles long and averaging 3/4 of a mile wide, encompassing, now get this, encompassing an area of more than 2,000 acres, destroyed more destroyed were more than 73 miles of roads, 120 miles of sidewalks, 2,000 lampposts, 17,500 buildings, and $222 million in property damage, which was about a third of the city's value in 1871. On October 11th, 1871, General Philip Sheridan uh, came quickly to the aid of the city and was placed in charge of by a proclamation given by Mayor Roswell Mason. And it said, um, quote, "The preservation of good order and peace in the city is hereby entrusted to Lieutenant General P.H. Sheridan, U.S. Army." Now,
So basically, martial law.
pretty much to protect the city from looting and violence, the city was put under, like you said, martial law for 2 weeks under General Sheridan's command. Um, Now, this had a mixture of regular Army troops, militia units, police, and especially organized civilian group called the 1st Regiment of Chicago Volunteers. Now, for 2 weeks, Sheridan's men patrolled the streets, guarded the relief warehouses, and enforced other regulations. On October 24th, the troops were relieved of their duties, and the volunteers were mustered out of service. Of the approximate 324,000 inhabitants of Chicago in 1871, 90,000 Chicago residents, which equals out to about 1 in every 3, were left homeless. 120 bodies were recovered, but the death toll may have been as high as 300. The county coroner speculated that an accurate count was impossible, as some victims may have drowned or had been literally incinerated, leaving no remains. In the days and weeks following the fire, monetary donations flowed into Chicago from around the country and abroad, along with donations of food, clothing, and other goods. Um, these donations came from individual corporations and cities. For example, New York City gave $450,000 alone along with clothing and provisions.
Right.
Cincinnati, Cleveland, and Buffalo, who were all commercial rivals of Chicago at the time, donated hundreds and thousands of dollars. And Milwaukee Fire Department, along with other nearby cities, helped by sending uh, firefighting equipment. Now, the fire also led to the question about development in the United States. Due to Chicago's rapid expansion at the time, the fire led to America's reflecting on industrialization. Based on a religious point of view, Some said that Americans should, quote, this is quoted, Americans should return to a more old fashioned way of life, and that the fire was caused by people ignoring traditional morality, end quote. Now, to me, this is kind of funny in a way. It's kind of, I don't want to say giving the middle finger to what happened, but in a way, it's giving the middle finger to what happened. In 1956, the remaining structures of the original O'Leary property at 558 West DeKoven Street were torn down for construction of the Chicago Fire Academy and Training Facility for Chicago firefighters, known as the Quinn Fire Academy or Chicago Fire Department Training Facility. A bronze sculpture of stylized flames entitled Pillar of Fire uh, by sculptor Egon Weiner, Weiner. Say it however you want.
I'd go with Weiner.
Okay. It was erected at the point of origin in 1961. Now, almost from the very moment the fire broke out, there was various theories about the cause, and it began to circulate through the town. The most popular of them and the most enduring legend maintains that the fire began when Mrs. O'Leary's uh, in the O'Leary's barn when the cow kicked the lantern over while Mrs. O'Leary was milking her cow. Now, anybody knows anything about dairy farming, cattle, anything, knows that you don't milk your cow at 8 o'clock at night. You milk them in the mornings. So that theory is kind of out the window for me.
Kind of
And
busted.
yeah, busted. And, or as they say on the paranormal documentaries, it's debunked. Um, I'll tell you my theory here in just a minute. Uh, this is the cow kicked over a lantern or an oil lantern lamp in some versions of the story, setting the fire to the barn. The O'Leary family denied this emphatically, stating that they were in the bed before the fire started. But the stories of the cow began to spread across the city.
Well, let me interrupt you there for a second. Is there an
Okay.
actual historical record of what happened as far as the determination, like an IFSAC, not IFSAC, but like a report?
No.
No, that was before all that, I guess, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, the O'Leary, Catherine O'Leary seemed to be like the perfect scapegoat for this. She was poor. She was an Irish Catholic immigrant. And during the latter half of the 19th century, there was this huge anti-Irish sentiment, and it was strong. It was very strong in Chicago, and throughout the United States. Uh, this was intensified more so as a result of the growing political power of the city's Irish population. Now, the O'Learys were never officially charged with starting the fire. The story became so ingrained in local uh, folklore that the Chicago City Council officially exonerated the O'Learys. And in case you're wondering, yes, they exonerated the cow too in 1997. Now, remember when I said, remember, windy, dry, drought conditions.
All right.
Remember when I said that. In fact, I said, y'all remember this. Here's my theory on how the fire started. You have a barn that you keep your cattle in. It's full of hay. It's drought conditions, windy. Hay is a natural product. When things like that start to decompose, they produce what?
Methane,
Heat. They produce heat.
heat, and methane. Yeah.
Yeah. And my theory is It got just the right breath of wind, and boom, spontaneous
Initially
combustion.
combustion.
Now, that's my theory, opinion, whatever you want to call it.
I mean, that's not far fetched. I've seen it happen in my career before. We had a stretch of landscaping that ran down the middle of Main Street that for 3 weeks straight, every day it would catch fire and we'd have to go out there and put it out. It
Mm-hmm.
was the cedar mulch that they put in, down the medians of the highways.
Mm-hmm. Now, our town down on the coast, right there at the Public Works buildings, they had a huge pile of mulch that they chopped up and graded up from, the various, um, people bringing wood scraps in and whatnot. And every summer, like clockwork, about once a week, it would catch fire.
Hmm.
We'd have to go out there and spend the afternoon putting it out. Yay us! But
So the Illyria's cow was exonerated, I think, was where we were at, and
yeah. Now, folks, this tragedy, 300 people dying, and the firestorm is what brought about Fire Prevention Week. It's to teach people, especially the younger generation coming up, like in the elementary schools. We all know when public fire education, that's where we hit the hardest is the elementary schools.
well, it works. I mean, education works.
Exactly.
If you look at it, what are firefighters these days? They're
EMTs that
basically
put out.
EMTs that occasionally put out fires.
Exactly.
I mean, um,
Now, it works. But not only do we use it to teach the next generation coming up about fire safety, it's also to remember these people
right.
and everything that happened there in Chicago in October of 1871. Now, a little fact uh, that a lot of people don't know about, there was another major conflagration going on in the United States at the same time as the Great Chicago Fire. But because it was more woodland and less big time city, it wasn't publicized as much.
Right.
And I didn't know that until I was, looking up, researching this. And if I'm not mistaken, I want to say it was out like Washington State,
Probably.
if I'm not mistaken. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it burned into Canada.
Okay. And
So,
we do have a couple of listeners or viewers, actually. Keep forgetting that we're on a visual medium. Uh, that are watching us. Somebody's been watching since the beginning on Twitch, and wanted to thank you for watching. And somebody's on YouTube now. Stop in the chat room and just say hi to us and drop us some comments. Just tell us, that you're watching, so we know.
yeah,
Um,
let us know if you like what we're doing. If you have any suggestions, we're open for it. Just don't hurt our feelings.
uh,
um,
but I did,
but
you were going on about that Chicago fire for a long time, and I just wanted to break in and
yeah,
welcome the people that were watching because they've been here with us patiently the whole time. So,
absolutely. Thank y'all for listening and watching.
so
But
what are some of your tips? I mean, since we are talking about fire safety, and one thing I think that is overlooked is they need to educate not just elementary, but the senior citizen demographic. We get more quote unquote structure fires from seniors that burn popcorn in their microwave because they set it on, you know,
and
80 minutes instead of 8 minutes,
yeah,
or whatever, 70 minutes instead of 7 minutes making a
yeah.
potato.
or young, something happens, like something interesting in Young and the Restless takes place, and they just totally forget about their meal cooking in the kitchen.
Right.
But the big thing is what we call Edith.
Okay.
Okay, and what Edith stands for is exit drills in the home.
Yeah. How to get out.
Exactly. Always have two ways out, because what are you going to do if you only have one way out and it's blocked by fire? Have two ways out every time.
Well, in relation to that, that's um, human nature, and I've seen this on structure fires that I've been to. Human nature is, and this is going to be kind of graphic sounding the way I'm telling this, but it's true. We come in and out of our homes one way always. We're used to it. It's routine.
Mm-hmm.
So, what happens when you can't get out that way? People, I'm trying to figure out. I'm stumbling over my words, but um, long story short, we found bodies by the front door of people trying to get out because that's the way that they know,
Mm-hmm.
instead of going out a bedroom window or what was people instinctively head to the way that they know, trying to
Yeah.
get out of a house.
Well, see, the bad thing about where I live is the both of the exit doors are on the same side of the apartment. My front door is literally right here to my right, and the secondary means of egress is right over here to my left in the kitchen. One goes down the front stairway, one goes down the back stairway.
Right,
If we have, God forbid, if we have a fire in either the kitchen or the living room, and we're in the bedroom, we're on the second floor. We're stuck till ladder truck gets here,
right.
and
And that's how it is at most apartments. Mine is the same way. Um, there's one door out of the apartment unless you go out a window. Um, so it's
I
either
mean, there.
jump or burn up.
Yeah, we got one great big bush out the front window that we could probably jump, land in the bush, and be okay. You know, be
Uh,
kind of scratched up a little bit, but unfortunately, my fat ass ain't gonna fit through these little windows. So I need some Crisco or something on them. But outside of having two ways out, big thing, working smoke alarms.
right. Change your batteries every time you change your clock
Eh,
for daylight savings.
exactly. Um,
Change them whether they need them or not.
exactly. And if you have a smoke alarm that's chirping like every 15 seconds, don't take it and unplug the battery and not change it. Make sure it works, and they will work, and they will save lives.
And
I've been in, go
okay,
ahead.
I was gonna say, and if you happen to have a smoke detector that's hardwired, make sure you have a battery in there because battery is a backup source in case the power goes out.
Now,
I mean,
yeah,
a lot of smoke detectors now are hardwired into the to the main power.
yeah. And you folks, you ain't gonna believe this, but I've been in house fires where the smoke alarms are still going off. They will work. Now, the newer battery operated ones,
Until they melt. They work until they melt.
yeah. And then I'm not so sure some of them won't still work. But anyway,
Yeah.
um, the newer smoke alarms have a lithium ion battery in them, and it's supposed to be like a 10-year battery, so you won't have to worry about changing it for 10 years. But
No, you
then
just throw them.
again,
You just throw them away and get a new detector.
exactly,
Because
and
a lot of the models now have sealed batteries in them, so you can't even change the batteries.
yeah, and
Which
just make sure you have working smoke alarms. Uh, make sure you have a working fire extinguisher.
Yep.
Uh, if you're unfamiliar or don't know what one to get one that is a B, C fire extinguisher,
Right.
and that will cover pretty much anything household related. Um, Make sure you have one of those, if nowhere else, in the kitchen. Um,
And make sure that it's not in the back of the cabinet or under the sink where you can't get to it.
exactly. Have it in hands or arms length reach. Uh, don't smoke in bed. Uh, that that's kind of a no brainer, goes without saying. Uh, Make sure you don't overload your electrical cord sockets.
Right.
A lot of people get these surge protectors that's got anywhere from like 4 to 8 plugs in it. Folks, that don't mean to plug everything and fill up every plug and use it. Um, we have two, and we have our TV and our internet stuff plugged into it. 3 plugs out of 8.
Right.
And even still, sometimes when I walk by, I'll reach down and feel it, see if it's getting this, see if it's getting dangerous hot or what. Um,
And what holiday's coming up next month? Not not Turkey Day, but
my birthday.
okay. Besides that,
Well, it is.
what's the major holiday coming up next month?
Christmas.
Yeah. And what's the most leading cause of fires in? There you go. Be careful with your Christmas trees.
Exactly. If you got a live tree, make sure
Yep.
it's watered. Uh, don't let it dry out
Ins-
because. Go ahead.
Inspect your lights. If you have lights from 1925, they're probably not really safe to use anymore.
Uh oh,
Um,
buddy, take the white lights off quick. No, I'm kidding, folks. I'm kidding. They're from 1935.
but you know, make sure there's no cuts and abrasions in the wires and the lights, and
Make
then
sure there's no broken lights.
no broken lights. Um, and don't put 80 strings of lights into one outlet like Clark Griswold does in Christmas Vacation. Because
No comment. We had a Christmas tree one year that I managed to get 1,500 lights on. 1,500. But I used 2 separate plugs,
there
so it
you
wouldn't
go.
overload that one plug. Now, with winter coming on, folks, if you use a space heater, make
Yep.
sure it is a minimum of 3 feet from the wall, a minimum of 3 feet from long hanging curtains. Do not plug space heaters into an extension cord or a surge protector. Plug it directly into the wall.
Right. Exactly.
See what else. Never leave anything. Thanksgiving's coming up. Christmas is coming up. People are going to be in the kitchen doing a lot of cooking. Do not leave anything cooking on the stove unattended.
And watch your pot handles. Make sure they're not. This is not a fire issue. It's a burn hazard. Turn
Exactly.
your handles toward the back so that hot liquids don't get spilled on someone.
Now.
Especially if you have little kids in the house.
Mm-hmm.
If
And go ahead.
if you're gonna be deep frying a turkey, which is the best way to have it in my opinion,
Amen.
make sure it's dry, and make sure it is completely thawed, and make sure it is dry because the oil will explode over and cause a major fire.
Now here's a tip on how to take care of that. And a uh, former firefighter told me this. Take and put your turkey into your turkey fryer pot. Fill the fill it with water up to where the turkey's covered, just like you would cook it. Take the turkey out of the water. When the water goes back down, to take a Sharpie or magic marker and draw a little line where that water line's at. Pour the water out, dry it out really good. Pour your oil into it up to that line that you just drew on the inside of that pot. And that way, when you put your turkey in, it won't overflow.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know if anybody knew that, but um,
Let me say something.
that's a safe way to do it. Now, also, do not fry your turkey in the house.
Right? That's maybe common sense,
You'd
but
you'd be surprised. Do not fry your turkey in the garage. Take it out in the middle of your yard if you have to, and fry that sucker up. Now, we responded to a call. It was Thanksgiving Eve. Guy was deep frying his turkey. He had it outside, but it was still close to his house. He dropped the turkey in. The oil overflowed. It hit the fire on the propane burner and lit the grass off, which spread to the outside of his house, up the vinyl siding on the outside, into the soffit, across the ceiling, and burned his house
that'll never happen. Come on now.
down. Okay.
I'm looking for something right now, so while you're doing that.
Okay. Um, if you have little kids, make sure all their toys are away. If you have like baseboard heating or uh, heat ducts in the floor, make sure their toys are away from those. Keep them uncovered so the air will flow and not block off and melt uh, whatever's on top of it and set it on fire. Uh, keep your bed clothing away from uh, said HVAC ducts and space heaters. Um, folks, it's a lot of just common sense things. Um, like, when was the last time you had your chimney cleaned? We're coming up on winter. People burn fireplaces. I've seen houses burned down because the chimney caught fire. And you can get these. Uh, they're like fire starter logs. You put it in your hearth and light it off, and it's supposed to clean out your chimney. Um, you know, it's common sense things, folks. That you know, if you really stop and think about it, I'm sure you could write a whole list down.
Yeah.
So, but just keep those things in mind. And as far as the Christmas lights, I remembered use only UL approved lights.
And if possible, use LEDs.
Yeah,
Because
that's what
actually, it's probably hard to find anything other than LEDs anymore if you buy
it
brand new
is.
ones.
It is, especially if you go to Hobby Lobby.
But
That's all they sell. And evidently, Hobby Lobby thinks their stuff's made of gold, but you didn't hear me say that. So, um, but anyway, that's all that's on our tree. Y'all seen our tree? They're all LED lights. The lights I have hanging around the ceiling here around my house here, uh, they go all the way around my living room and down the hallway. They're LED. So, um, if you're hanging lights outside and you're using a ladder, this isn't. This is again more towards medical versus fire, but make sure your ladder is uh, set properly, and you have someone holding and steadying the ladder for you. Last thing you want to do is spend Christmas in a
hospital.
body cast. And I know somebody that was in a body cast one time, and I felt so bad for them. So honestly, they had to walk around with a colostomy bag, basically, because of that body cast, because they couldn't go to the bathroom. You know, they were had a catheter on in one end and a colostomy bag pipe up the other end. So
Well,
but
okay. Oh, wait a minute.
did you find it?
I'm working on it. See if you can come up with some more tips. I'm sorry. I just
Mhm.
thought this would be good to add, and it's just being slow.
Okay, now, folks, for those of you who aren't in the fire department or just a novice or a buff or whatnot, um, one of the most important ones that we've mentioned was keeping your if you're using a live tree, keeping it watered because the fire Christmas tree will go up in seconds and it'll set your living room on fire and no effort at all. A fire actually doubles in size every 15 to 30 seconds, depending on the fire load that's in the room that it's in. Uh, so it won't take long to reach the point of flashover.
Well, I
And
couldn't find it, so I couldn't get it to work. So my
uh,
apologies.
that's all right.
Um,
Um, so, just be extremely careful this holiday season and, have a safe and, and happy holidays with your family, not in the hospital. So, Chris, what you got now?
well, I'm going to take a little uh, commercial breaks, so to speak, and go over a little bit of stuff while I'm thinking about it. First of all, we have a website, or actually, the software that we use for our streaming is called EVMux. And if you ever wanted to start your own
We have,
It's the JC Fire Technologies website. It's our master website that has all of our different sub websites and things that we do. You can just click on the code there, and it's jcfiretechnologies.com.
uh, currently we have one, two, three, actually four shows that we do,
Yep.
and with a fifth coming up. Um, if anybody is into conspiracy theories, you might want to check our new podcast out. It'll be hope this classes or study sessions is not for certification. It's basically uh, more or less a study guide for those of you who are wanting to get your firefighter certification levels, and if you just want a refresher, come join us for that. That'll be starting in January.
Right. It's just basically, yeah, like you said, not for certification. It's just for fun. For one of our goals here at JC Fire Productions is to, or JC Fire Technologies rather, is to educate those who come after us. Jay's got the most experience. I'm a little behind him, but as far as that goes, as far as education goes, but I've got all my certifications and several years of field experience now. So we want to pass on to the younger generation our 30 years of combined experience. Just help them.
Yeah, the teaching tool in my opinion is experience.
Right. Um.
Um,
Good.
I mean, you sit here and read out of a book all day long, but until you uh, actually crawl down a burning hallway or something like that and experience it and do the job, you know,
Well.
all the book learning is, just in a file in your brain.
Well.
If,
Exactly. It's tools to use in your toolbox.
exactly.
Um. You won't know what it feels like till you feel the heat. You won't know what a flashover is until you've seen one up close and personal. And me have been in a flashover simulator. It's an amazing thing. It really is. Um,
I've been in situations where uh, I've actually cussed at the steps on my coat for keeping me that much further up off of the floor because it's so hot.
yeah. Uh, off my but yeah. So that's just it's just we're not charging anything.
Mm-mm.
If you want to help our shows and our productions, feel free to go to our website. Donation links on our website. We can always use the help financially, but all of our content is always going to be. We're never going to charge anything for it. Uh,
Exactly.
as far as that goes, we're here to help, and that's our mission statement. That's purpose.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself.
So one other thing that you said earlier, and I just found out is if you're listening in the North Carolina area, we currently have Burn Man.
Don't even thump a cigarette out the window if you're up there.
Right. It's dry and it's not humid.
Mm-mm.
Humidity level is really low.
Uh, and I'll say a prayer for those folks up there too. All my wildfire experience has been on flat land. I've never fought one on a mountain.
I wouldn't want to.
Me neither. Me neither. Um, so y'all keep those folks up there in your thoughts and prayers. So
So, show's actually running a little longer than normal, but I had something I wanted to discuss as well. Uh, and this is less your opinion. So, it seems to be, in my experience, the past two paid firefighter jobs I've gotten seem to be due to my age.
mm-hmm.
And this is not intent. This is not intended to be a slam against millennials or anybody else younger than us, but I feel like a lot of these times these departments hire me because I'm older, a little wiser. I'm not definitely not in the same shape as these 18, 19, 20-year-old, you know, kids are, but I'm older, I'm wiser, and most recently, I'm fully certified, you know, of my past history. What's your
Hmm.
thoughts on that, Jay?
I agree. I agree. Uh, it's like we discussed in one of the previous shows that a lot of the younger generation firefighters, especially in the volunteer ranks, just want to show up, for the T-shirt and pager and red light on their dashboard. They skate by with minimal training hours
Right.
and minimal runs on calls. It's like they really just wanted the T-shirt and feel important, or um, they don't have the time. They might genuinely want to do it, but don't have the time to be able to dedicate to it. Which, if that's the case, that's fine. If you got to work to support family, that's fine. But if you're just showing up for a T-shirt and get to run a red light and look at me, I'm cool. No.
And
Uh, Go ahead.
I'm just thinking that, and this is going to sound bad, but it's just the truth. A lot of these younger kids, especially in the fire, it's a trend I'm seeing in the fire service that they don't have the work ethic.
Mm-mm.
Kids are not instilled with work ethic that we have. They're not
No.
gonna they're not gonna go and do your station duties. They're not gonna mop a floor. They're not gonna clean a. They're just gonna go um, jump up out of bed when there's a call, put wet stuff on the red stuff, and go back and go to bed.
No.
It's
No.
the whole generation as a whole. They're entitled and they're no work ethic
Well,
for the
now,
most
folks.
part.
Yeah.
There's always exceptions, but for the most
Yeah.
part,
I mean, it's just a different breed from giddy up to what. Um, from the day I knew the difference between a Scott pack and a turbojet nozzle, I wanted to do the job, and I was willing to do what it took to secure the job and move up in the ranks. And we've had guys show up at work that the guy that was there on community service did more than they did.
right?
Just because you got a community service worker don't mean sit on your ass in the day room all day and eat ice cream and watch TV. No, you do your normal duties, because this guy ain't got a clue how to check off up. He don't know what the proper PSI on air pack is. Get off your ass and do the job.
And learn something. You know, always learn
Well,
something. But it's just like um, there I go. I lost my train of thought again. Getting old, man.
copy that.
Um, well,
I mean, if it's nothing else than watching our podcast, there's a fire department here in Alamance County that uses our podcast for training hours. Talk to your training officer and ask him, can I, hey, if I watch this, um, say for instance, the show we did on the Super Sofa Store, and I'm getting good at that.
that's really good information on that show, by the way.
Very good information.
Really, really in depth.
It shows breakdown and incident command, accountability, um, the lack of the fire department um, moving ahead with progress. I mean, a lot of information, a lot of valuable information. We spent a long, long time working on that show.
Oh, okay. I know what I was going
It,
to say now. Let me,
and go ahead before you forget it again.
yeah. So, circling back to what I was saying before, it makes these bigger city departments almost impossible to get on because their hiring process is crazy. You have
Hmm.
this ridiculous. um, agility tests you have to take, and then you have these crazy interviews that are like more or less they sit you down and they grill you, and that's just the way it is. And these kids they fly through the agility test because they're young and really well physically fit for their age, and then
Now, what was it on that one department you had applied for that they had on the physical agility test that made both of us sitting here and like, what the hell is this for?
well initially you had to run a half mile very first thing. So at that point you were um pretty much well spent by the time you got done that. Then you did like basic things, the hose drag, and you did um carry the saws and normal average, stuff like that.
Hmm.
Drag a dummy. Then you got closer to the end of it. You climbed over a couple of pallets that were set up as an obstacle, and then you had to crawl through a tube at the end to simulate confined space. And then at the very end, they put a um, entanglement box, which was totally unfair. I mean,
Man,
and you only had 9 minutes to do it all, like 9 minutes total.
yeah. Now,
And
entanglement box, don't get us wrong, folks. Is excellent training,
yeah, but it shouldn't
but
be a test. It shouldn't be an agility test item.
no, no, it shouldn't. Um, that should be like a uh, an afternoon training session.
Right.
Because I don't care who you are, you're not going to be able to snip through 50 feet of wire with a pair of wire snips you know, and still be able to pass that, you know, come
Yeah.
in under the 9 minute mark.
Yeah. Or crawl through it.
Yeah. It just, that to me just didn't make any sense.
No. But
Um,
yet, the lack of work ethic in these kids, they just make everything so much harder for people to try to get hired because they're wanting to
mm-hmm.
weed out people that are useless, more or less. I mean,
Yeah.
and I understand it from that aspect of it, but it just makes it really hard for
It's just
people that
somebody
are
who,
serious about it to get
yeah.
on because they make these interviews and these tests just grueling and ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, now there's some local departments here that once you sit through the classes of firefighter one, firefighter two, and basic EMT, once you get hired on with them, they send you to their academy.
Oh yeah, a lot of fire departments do that.
And
You can have all your certifications out the yin yang, and then you go back to square one and you go through it through their academy and you do it their way.
and and you learn their, I was just going to say, you learn their procedures and their SOPs, and how they do things in that academy,
Which
which is fine,
yeah,
because basically firefighter one and two levels is just like your vital signs, your initial set of vital signs. It's a
right,
baseline.
right.
It's something to build on. You have the knowledge to be able to go in and put out a fire and come out safely. Now,
Well,
if you want to do something other than, as my pop used to call it, be a jump seat firefighter for your whole entire career, that's fine. Stick with firefighter one and two. Don't expand your knowledge.
don't
If you
go into
want to
hazmat. Yeah,
if you want to expand and move up the in the ranks, and maybe even specialize in some in a particular field in the fire service.
yeah. I was gonna say I would equivalent that to like um, being bilingual would be an advantage. Like in a lot of jobs, if you're bilingual, you're desirable because you have an additional skill that other people don't.
Mm-hmm.
Specializing in things like hazmat, technical rescue, um, you know, um, confined spaces, things like that,
Mm-hmm.
um, just makes you more valuable as an employee, makes you more desirable to other
Ex-
departments.
exactly. And I mean, there's excuse me. There's weekend schools you can go to, and there's always something going on at the National Fire Academy. They have they set aside one weekend a month or no, it's about every weekend where they have
Yeah.
uh, like anyone from North Carolina who wants to come up and take something, they'll offer such and such classes. Then the following month, anyone from Virginia, they'll offer the same classes, and
Well,
until they cover the whole, uh, 50 states.
well, for example, I mean, there's all kind of things. You're right. For example, the fire department I used to work at, one of the members actually invented the North Carolina Breathing School, which is a very, very rigorous, very tough class that teaches you. They call it the breathing school, but it's basically using your SCBAs and different tactics to get out of situations alive.
Hmm.
Um, and it's a very prestigious, very well known school called the I think it's the North Carolina Breathing School, if I'm not mistaken. Um, so just things like that.
Yeah.
Southeastern Extrication has all kind of specialty extrication classes that they teach from
Hmm.
not just cars, but electric cars, buses, airplanes, all kind of like
Far,
specialty.
farm equipment.
Yeah, Southeastern
Um,
Extrication School is a specialized thing.
Quick question. One of the people that's listening, is it Philip by chance?
I don't know. It doesn't tell me who's listening. I have one on YouTube and one on
Because
or Stitcher.
because the reason I said, when Philip was on the fire department, he went through the farm equipment extrication class, and he got proficient in that. And he said that class, pretty much kicked his butt, but the knowledge that he gained out of it was invaluable. So,
Well,
um,
I went through a local a school bus extrication class because at the time I was a school bus driver as well as a volunteer, and it opened my mind to a lot of things, like just how strong the frame of a school bus is.
mhm,
We cut
if I'm ever in a wreck, I want to be in a school bus. Built like a tank.
we cut literally both sides out of the bus, the
Hmm.
back out of the bus, and everything but the four corner posts. And we were able to climb up on a ladder and walk around on the roof without it collapsing. They're that well built,
Hmm.
and that really surprised me.
Well, there's one thing that I bet a lot of people didn't know, that those little black lines on a bus are there for a purpose.
Hmm.
The bottom line, help me remember this.
Bottom line is where your feet are.
Yep.
The middle
Second
line
line,
is like
the
waistline,
seat.
and then the seat, and then the top line is the basically your head, where your head would be.
Yeah. So
Average,
yeah. But then you get the bums like me that's above average when it comes to height.
and that's
So
only on school buses. City buses and transit buses aren't like that. That's just for school buses.
yeah, got to protect the future.
Um, so yeah, I mean, there's all kind of online training you can take as well. I mean, I took a
Exactly.
I took a class on or a workshop on EV sponsored by Rosenbauer. I didn't get any real certification out of it, but it gave me some interesting knowledge, and they probably sold a
Hmm.
whole lot of their best systems because of that class. But I mean, it was interesting. It's just basically showing about a device they invented that goes up under a car, pierces the battery block, and floods it with water.
Now, you say online classes. The National Fire Academy has online classes also.
Right,
And FEMA also has online classes. You can go on the FEMA website and knock out some of your NIMS classes.
right.
Which, if you're not uh, familiar with NIMS, is the help me remember this right, Chris.
It's
National
National
Incident
Incident Management System.
Management System. Yeah,
Hmm.
which is basically, in layman's terms, a souped up incident command. Um,
It's a byproduct of 9/11. Actually, events of nine
yeah.
eleven. It basically takes incident command and makes it more manageable. and that's like too much to really talk about right now as far as all the details. But
Yeah. And
um,
if I'm not mistaken, you used to could be able to get all of your NIMS except for two.
yep,
I mean,
it's
there's
100, 200, 700, 800, and there's actually some extra ones online that don't really count for anything now. But
now,
3 and 400, you still have to go through a classroom, and
yeah. Well, and those you do a lot of tabletop
yeah, it's a lot of scenario
scenarios.
based stuff.
So
3 and 400 take some coffee, a lot of coffee,
a
because
lot of coffee.
as I'll be honest with you,
Monster,
yeah,
they're boring.
yeah, it was quite very boring.
Man. Um, but yeah, don't don't just don't just go in and sit down on the couch in the day room and think, oh, I've got it made. No, it don't work like that. Get up, do something. Do it before you're asked.
Right?
I mean, and do it good the first time. Don't half-ass it. Um, then like with station duties, once you get done with that, get with your senior guy, and even if you're not training at the time, get with the senior guy. Hey, come out here and show me something on the rigs that that I might not know or understand.
Right.
Don't be
Because
afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask them.
because unless
It,
you, I was saying, unless you got a photographic memory, I guarantee you don't know where everything on every single truck is, unless you've been there for like years and years.
exactly. And now with me, I could go to the station now and pump the truck because I've done it for so long, and the pump panels really hasn't changed unless you have one of the computerized pump panels.
They're all that way, bro. You couldn't pump a truck these days, I don't think.
I I get water out of some bitch if I have to turn it upside down and shake it. Okay, but you know, okay, let's rephrase it. Anything without a computerized pump panel, I have no doubt in my mind I could go and pump right now, and I've been out of it since 2015.
But honestly, it's not that bad. It's not that hard with the computerized pump panels
But well,
without having without having
this
to
is
retrace our conversation as far as like what if yeah. But
man, but this is see this is the beauty. What I love about our podcast. You're the younger generation coming up, and you can talk about the new stuff.
yeah,
To where here I am, the old retired war horse that's put out to pasture, and we can kind of mold together how things come about from my generation to yours.
and that's the whole entire purpose of it. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said, like I stated before, that's our purpose is to educate the younger. Yeah, there's people younger than me, but you've been in it a lot longer than I have, so you have knowledge that I don't, and I might have a little bit of knowledge that you do, or that you don't, as far
Mm-hmm.
as like the new stuff.
Now,
So, um,
but
but unfortunately, a lot of things we agree on. It'd probably be a whole lot more interesting of a show if you were completely opposite of me and we argued all the time about stuff, but we don't because we agree about on everything nearly.
yeah, we might be uh, 10, 10 years apart in age, but we're cut from the same cloth. So, and that's scary because look what you got to look forward to.
Oh, it's already there. You just can't see it right now because I have a hat on and a headset.
Yeah. Well, the reason I got a hat on and a headset is because I got a one hell of a bald spot coming in like right here. We talked about it in one of the previous shows. Right where my leather helmet used to sit on the
Yeah.
top of my head, I'm losing my hair.
Well, you gotta have to hat on so that you don't blind the viewers.
Yeah, this is true too. I'm out of baby powder, so. But well, Chris, if you don't have any, if you got anything else,
No, I think that pretty much covers it. But like I said, always train. Always be willing to learn something new because you're never going to know it all. You're never going to learn it all. If you
Yeah,
don't learn something on every call, you're not doing something right.
exactly.
Um,
And I'll tell you, like, uh, I tell you, like my dad used to say, train like your life depends on it,
because it does.
because it does. And with that, folks, um, as far I'm done with everything I want to talk about tonight. So, Chris, you good?
Yeah, I think so. If I can find my closing.
All right. Well, folks, we hope you have. If you don't see us before, which you probably will, but just in case, we hope everyone has a very happy and safe Thanksgiving. I hope your day is full of uh, love and everlasting memories with your family. And don't burn your house down while trying to fry your turkey.
Right.
And with that, folks, we're two in.
And two out.
We'll see you on the other side.
See you next time.
Bye.